Hey guys, Mr. Mimikyu here. In today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a Pokemon that a lot of people have forgotten about since Season 9, and that is Pelipper. Now, I say since Season 9 because if you didn't know, Weather Ball got nerfed in Season 9 of Go Battle League, in which Pelipper became less used, so as a result, people just stopped using Pelipper since the Weather Ball nerf. But then in Season 13 here, which is this season, Wing Attack got its energy generation increase from 7 to 8. So that means Pelipper is much more spammier with Weather Ball, being able to get to the second one with just 4 Wing Attacks as opposed to 5. Which really benefited it a lot, as well as other flying type Pokemon like Noctowl, Pidgeot, and of course Staraptor. And an honorable mention is Ducklet, because for anyone that plays Little Cup knows how decimately annoying Ducklet really is. Here my opponent has a Galarian Slowbro. I can just go for the Shadow Ball with Lucario and secure the KO against them, and that's a good game, very well played. Next opponent having a Dubwool. Now, to be fair, like with Dubwool, it could have Wild Charge, but you just don't know because Dubwool's moveset is fairly random, and basically what happened is that during like my 5th set of the battle, apparently it screwed me over with a lot of bugs, which caused the game to like not being able to log me in. So I had to like reset my phone, re-download the app, delete it, all that stuff. And then of course the game decided to reload, and everything was just fine then. And then like I just didn't know what happened though, because like, oh my god, it was just so nerve-wracking to see that Pokemon Go went down for me, and it just really kind of annoyed me. And here my opponent having a Staraptor. Now, as I had said before, like with the Wing Attack buff, it really benefits a lot of flyers, like as I had said before, like, you know, Pidgeot, Noctowl, Pelipper, you name it. Although the problem is that with Pidgeot, you have to use an elite fast TM to get Wing Attack. Oh, and also Charizard too, because with Wing Attack, you can now get to Dragon Claw more faster with the second time, and the first time is still 5. But the thing is, like, you can get to Blast Burn much more faster as opposed to 8, which really benefited Charizard a lot more, since, like, you know, the matchups are much more finicky, and it does have a lot of more flexibility, which is nice, since, like, Charizard is pretty spammy, but it's quite glassy to see. Here my opponent swapped out of their Alolan Raticate into Unova and Stunfisk. I'm going to be basically throw out the Weather Balls and stuff to do some big meaningful damage to it. But of course, they end up getting both of their shields. I'm thinking, let's shield up and see if we could try and see what we can do. Or actually, no, wait, they used one. Never mind. I'm just really tired right now because, like, oh my gosh, this is like the beginning of the set I'm doing in the Great League Remix, which the ban list is in the link in the description below if you want to go check it out yourself. I don't want to like put up the whole list because it would be just like a lot of time and work to see. And my opponent having a Bite Crobat, which I'm kind of shocked by, but at the same time, I don't know why they would do that though. Here they get the attack buff, which doesn't really benefit them that much, and of course they have Raticate. I just go into Lucario and they just surrendered. Moving on to the next match, we got a Scavalier. Now this is fairly a good lead, now that with Wing Attack buff you can like get to the second Weather Ball much faster, which is always an added bonus. And basically we can let everything go, since like a Scavalier can't do like super effective damage against Pelipper, since it can only do resisted damage, double with Drill Run and single with Mega Horn. And here they switch into Espeon. I go into Steelix, and we can just tank anything really. We could just proceed to the farm down. We don't have to shield anything. We do have to be wary of Shadow Ball, which really doesn't matter. Like, even though those confusions surely are adding up, they go into Gligar, and here I go for a Crunch, and they end up shielding, which is kind of surprising, which I don't usually expect though, because like Steelix's attack isn't that great though. And of course, anyone that noticed on the right side of the video, Lucario has the flag of Croatia. The reasoning being is because he is supporting the Croatia football team that he thinks is going to win the World Cup this year, which I would love to see that happen though, because like, you know, like so far they have beat Canada 4-1. They drew against England and Belgium, so now they're into the round of 16. And if they lose against Japan, they're out. And that would be kind of sucky for Luke, though, because he basically had been supporting Croatia since his birth. And to be honest, it's not really expecting something that you would see, though, in like a football. Like, it is all fun and games, like we have like so many going on here. Even though us Canadians actually have been knocked out of the World Cup by Morocco on Thursday, because we actually played pretty terribly. And to be honest, like I know, like it would have been nice if Canada were to get its first World Cup. Like England hasn't won anything since 1966. Although the thing is, like Canada hasn't even like won anything like related to like football or even like other things, but I'm not too sure if it is true or not, because like with football, it's like, man, there are a lot of like great teams that we got like Australia, the Netherlands, Belgium, France. Like 4 years ago, France won against Croatia, and that was like a complete bummer for me, because like I was rooting for Croatia after they beat Russia 4-3. And to be honest, like it would have been nice if Croatia had won the World Cup, let alone like England was so close. Like they were in the finals about to beat Italy, but then Italy was able to win them, and I was very disappointed about that last year, because I wanted England to win their first ever Euro, and sure enough they didn't. It just really saddens me. But enough chit chat, let's get on to the matches. Here my opponent having a Malamar. Now Malamar is pretty interesting to see. Now, we've seen it a lot in the Psychic Cup, and how in the mirror match is basically like who's going to throw the foul play, who's going to throw the hyper beam, all that stuff. And since like we're basically doing like triple resisted damage to each other, and basically like that's how it's supposed to be. Here my opponent having a Buzzwole. Look how much those wing attacks are doing to Buzzwole. My goodness, it's just getting shredded to pieces. Although I didn't necessarily have to throw the Weather Ball, since it was a completely silly thing to do. Here, they just have Obstagoon. I go into Lucario, and this is pretty much game over. They can't do anything about it. Here, I decide to shield up last second in case it is a cross chop. It ends up becoming Night Slash, but that's a good game, well played. Moving on to the next opponent is a Emolga. Now, Emolga is kind of scary, as well as another electric type by the name of Togedemaru, because, like, electric types tend to be scary if you have, like, a flyer on the lead, mainly Pelipper, because Pelipper has a quad weakness to electric, and it really doesn't help it that much. My opponent having a Galarian Darmanitan. Here I decided to shield just in case it's a superpower, but it ends up becoming an Ice Punch, which, oh my goodness, like, you usually don't expect, like, the movesets, though, because, like, the problem is that Galarian Darmanitan is, like, too slow to compete, unlike in the main series when it got banned to Ubers, like, 3 years ago. Like, oh my goodness, I was very upset when I couldn't use Galarian Darmanitan in the OU tier on Pokemon Showdown, and it just really saddens me. And my opponent brings back in the Emolga. I go into Luke. To be fair, I really can't do anything about it. I could just go for a power-up punch. Like, there was no chance I was going to get to the Shadow Ball, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't have made it anyways. They throw last second because they were scared of, like, me farming them down, but it really wouldn't have mattered. I go into Pelipper. I'm just going to throw in the Weather Ball and then just farm down the Toxicroak, or maybe even throw another Weather Ball, which is fine by me. We could just throw in the Weather Ball and take down the Toxicroak, and that's a good game, well played. Moving on to the next opponent, we got a Gyarados. Now, Gyarados is fine. It's all fine and dandy, since, like, they're running Waterfall, which I usually don't think it's recommended to run Waterfall on Gyarados in the Great League. And to be fair, Gyarados is not a Pokemon that you would want to run in the Great League to begin with, because 1, it is very glassy, and 2, there aren't that many electric types, but there are some that I could name offhand. Plus, it loses the Bastiodon if you have Dragon Breath, since, like, those Smackdowns are just doing big damage to you, even though you're only taking single super effective. And my opponent has a Beedrill. We can just go into Steelix. Look at those Poison Fangs. They're doing absolutely nothing, and the only thing that does hurt us a lot is Drill Run. Boom, it does a lot of damage, and I click on Psychic Fangs, but I lose CMP. I decide to shield just to keep my Steelix fairly healthy. I'm going to throw in the Psychic Fangs to guarantee the defense drop. Now, one thing you may notice is that they switch. I go into Lucario, they have Obstagoon, and as long as they... Oh my goodness, that was a cross chop, and I failed to take them down, but that's okay. We could just take them down with Obstagoon. Now, thank goodness they didn't, like, throw the cross chop, or else then I probably wouldn't have won. Next opponent having a Pelipper Mirror. Now, this is very scary because you don't know if they are or are not going to throw the bait. Here I throw, and we end up winning CMP, which is very nice because like having like a higher attack weighted Pelipper really can benefit in like certain situations. Though we end up shielding the Weather Ball, which was completely unnecessary, but it had to be done because we weren't too sure if they were going to throw in the Hurricane. And you know what the heck, I'm going to let this move go through because it's just a Weather Ball, and I'm going to throw in the Hurricane one last sec to see if we can one-shot them. Let's go. Boom, down goes the Pelipper, and they have a Skunk Tank. Now we can go into Steelix. I was thinking of contemplating into Lucario. They have a Shiftry in the back. And of course, this is just... I'm like, I'm going to let this move go just because I'm thinking, you know, we're fine again. But they have Hurricane. Oh my goodness. That just one-shotted us. Oh my gosh. That was just... unfortunate to see. It was quite sad to see that happen, though. Because, like, I usually don't expect Hurricane when seeing Shiftry. I usually expect Leaf Blade and Foul Play, not Hurricane, because Hurricane is not a move that you would usually run on Shiftry, though. And there's no shielding the Psychic Fangs, thinking I was going to go for Earthquake. But the problem is that I do wish I had Earthquake on Steelix, because then I can like do super effective damage against other Steelixes, but even then it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Here my opponent just frozen a crunch, we survive it, and then we just KO for the win. I'm telling you everyone, the wing attack buff is just so great. Like you can now get to your moves much faster. It just feels so great. And to be fair, like Gus was an interesting move to run on Pidgeot, like during the time it was available in the Go Battle League in Season 9, likely because in Season 8 it was temporarily banned, so you weren't able to use it in all of Season 8 due to a bug that caused an exploit glitch to cause the opponent's game to freeze. If anyone remembers that, I sure did, and I was unable to use Pidgeot throughout the entire 8th season. It was allowed in the remix, but then it became banned again. Like, oh my goodness, like Pidgeot has been having its ups and downs, and it's just really baffles me to see that happen, though. And my opponent having a regular Rapidash, excuse me. We decided to shield up against Pelipper because, you know, I want to preserve the health. And we ended up throwing CMP, which I feel like isn't necessary, but it had to be done. And, of course, all they have left is the Obstagoon. I decided to call, thinking, Obstruct again. And it is. And we just take him down for the win. Next opponent having a Alolan Muck. Now, we all know the concept about Alolan Muck, you know, like usually you expect Alolan Muck in the Ultra League, not the Great League, because Ultra League is Alolan Muck's home, because it does its job better there, since it has like much more flexibility against Giratina Altered and Cresselia. Here my opponent shields the Weather Ball, thinking it was a Hurricane, and of course we can tank a move, and they threw an Acid Spray, which did no damage. And of course they have a Machamp here. They used both of their shields right away. I don't know what the heck my opponent was thinking here. I throw in the Psychic Fangs, but we end up losing CMP. I'm just gonna... But they end up throwing a Heavy Slam. Oh my gosh, I can't speak today. I'm just like... oh man, we're able to farm down, which is nice. We take back Switch Advantage, and they're doing nothing to us, and they just were able to take us out. I go into Lucario, and no matter what they throw, we can tank it because we resist everything of Alolan Muck's moveset. They have it's a Hex Alolan Marowak, which, to be fair, you don't usually expect Hex on Alolan Marowak because you usually expect Fire Spin because it does a consistent amount of damage and generates a fairly more above moderate energy gain, while Hex does less damage and generates a lot more energy than Fire Spin. And of course we're facing each other in the mirror match, and mine was able to win CMP because mine has a 7 attack IV as shown on the top right of the screen. Here I go for a Weather Ball here, thinking that we're going to see if they're going to grab a shield, which they don't. And you know what, I'm going to call this is going to be a Weather Ball, and it is. Oh my goodness, like, oh my goodness, like so many Weather Ball calls, like jeez. Here, I survive with 1 HP, close to 1 HP. I throw in the Weather Ball to see if we can secure the KO. We sure do. And who they bring in? Vigoroth. Now, we can just go into Lucario, though. The only difference is that our counter is getting stabbed. Theirs is not. So, that's perfectly fine by me. Even though we tanked the Body Slam not too well, they have a knocked out. I know it was unnecessary for me to throw the Power-Up Punch, and Here we could just go into Steelix, you know, to do some meaningful damage with the Dragon Tail. Like, the buff to Dragon Tail Fall in Season 8 update really benefited Steelix, but the problem is that it was lacking a move that would, like, lower the opponent's defense, in which it did in Season 9 with Crunch, but it wasn't enough to give it a viable move. But then in Season 12, it got Psychic Fangs, which is a welcome addition to see on Steelix. They bring back in the Vigoroth. I'm just going to go for a Psychic Fangs here. They no-shield it. I go for a second to see if we can, like, secure it down into the red. They shield it. We go back into Lucario. They throw right away. This game is pretty much over. They can't do anything about it. They throw in the Body Slam and see if we could proceed to the farm down, but we're unable to. And we could just go for a Psychic Fangs, and sure enough, Noctowl doesn't have a move, and it doesn't. So that's a good game, well played. Next opponent having a Steelix. Now this is pretty new. They swap out into Drapion. Like, excuse me? Why would you go into Drapion against... well, you could have just stayed in, like, you know, to do some neutral damage with the Dragon Tails. But I see the appeal to go into Drapion. And of course, like, in the first 2 sets, I believe it was, Drapion was nowhere to be seen because Niantic made an error that they banned Drapion instead of Registeel. But then they were able to patch it up, so that's good to note. And here I got myself down into the red. I go for another Psychic Fangs. I don't care about losing like switch advantage or anything. I just want to do some meaningful damage against the Drapion. Here we could just go into Lucario, proceed to the farm down. They have a Frostlass, and you know, come to think of it, like Frostlass can be quite cumbersome if you know what I'm saying though. I throw in the Power Punch, they get a shield, and I decide to return back with a shield of my own, and it ends up becoming a good shield by me. They bring back in the Steelix. Now I threw on Unalignment, which gives them a free Dragon Tail. I go for a Power Up Punch again, and you know what? I'm just going to let this go. It ends up becoming a Psychic Fangs, which brings me down to the red. Come on, can we farm down? Not quite, but that's okay. We can just go for the Weather Ball here. We got a move stored on Lucario, so it's all good in games, you know. We got this pretty much in the bag, and they just surrendered. Next opponent having an Araquanid. Now, to be fair, if I know how to play this correctly, and they're running Infestation, which is like, hello? They throw right away, which ends up becoming a Bug Buzz. Brings me close to nowhere near the yellow, even though like Pelipper's like not that tanky though. I throw in a Weather Ball hoping to get a shield, but they called it, which is like, oh my goodness. Are you that serious? Are you that high? Oh my goodness, you'd probably be high as a kite to do something like that. Oh man, that just seems so wrong. And of course I did throw in the Hurricane, and we rocked it like one. We get to the second Hurricane, and hopefully we can grab the first shield, which we don't, and it brings them down to the red. Like, oh my goodness. Now we could just go into Steelix. We could tank Weather Balls all day. Like, you know, it's all fine and dandy. Doesn't even bring me down to the yellow, which is like, hello, are you there? They have a Steelix of their own. Now this one is kind of misleading because of course, yeah, I'm doing resisted damage, they're doing resisted damage. I bring in Lucario. Gosh, I don't know what to do anymore because this matchup is kind of scary. We could just proceed to the farm down, and wow, that was like closer than I anticipated. Next opponent having a Unilvan Stunfisk. Now the problem with Unilvan Stunfisk is that it core breaks the steel types and the flying types, even though the only steel type you see in the remix are Steelix and Lucario, and even then it's just not really worth a while. Now here I should have like caught the discharge onto Steelix, but I didn't because I feel like an idiot, and oh my goodness, I just feel kind of upset that I did that though. But at last, you can't do anything about it. They shield it, and of course I bring in Steelix. They have a Machamp, and oh my goodness, this kind of sucks for me. I think this is probably game over or something because, like, you know, misplays happen. Like, you know, like I thought I was going to catch the discharge with Steelix, but I failed, even though like I was a little bit too early to begin with. And oh man, this is I'm kind of in a bit of a pickle here. I go into Pelipper, that's all fine and dandy, but now they're just going to discharge my Pelipper and fry it to oblivion, and there it goes. And all I have left is Lucario. We'll never know what is in the back, and to be fair, this game is pretty much over. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to... And they have as a Pelipper. I throw in the Shadow Ball, but it doesn't even matter. And that's a good game to my opponent. Well played. So in conclusion, Pelipper seems like a welcome addition back into the Gold Battle League. It may have been like very popular back in Season 4 and was like pretty good in like all those seasons all the way up to Season 9. When Weather Ball got nerfed, people just stopped using it and just overlooked it. And I felt the same way too, and I think, with the new wing attack buff, it really benefits Pelipper despite the Weather Ball nerf it got in Season 9. But anyways, that was my video on Pelipper in the Great League Remix. Be sure to like the video. A like is very much appreciated. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, this is Mr. Mimikyu, and I'm saying peace out.